Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be talking about the state of trios in competitive Fortnite. Now, if you guys don't know, Fortnite as like a staple has always run with like trios or duos and solos rather, and it's always just kind of been the way that it is. Now, early Fortnite scrims were like squads, and I guess it just makes sense because squads was like a major mode, I suppose. But they finally introduced trios, and I feel like there's a lot to talk about. First and foremost, my kind of question is like, are they fun? Like, do they play well? Is it entertaining? Do they work with competitive things like that? And I gotta say, I do think that trios are fun, but for me personally, they're not the best mode, and we're gonna kind of jump into that here in a little bit. But ultimately, I don't know what the general consensus is on are they entertaining. I think it can be. I think that it's fine. I don't really think it makes a big difference in terms of production and in terms of like how the actual event runs too much. So I think ultimately, like, yeah, they're fun, yeah, they're entertaining, but the biggest question is, do they work for competitive? Now, in that sense, yes, they do work. I mean, there's no real big issues, but there are a little bit of like social problems that come along with trios, and the biggest one is kind of like issues with teams and like snaking and like who plays with who, and a lot of that originates from the fact that competitive was kind of just solo and duos. So with solo and duos, you're now forcing duos or like people to either break up from their duo, stick with their duo, and pull a third, or vice versa. So it's kind of like a weird situation, and we've seen a little bit of that. Like, people are saying Zate paid Dubs 10k to snake his other team, and then you've got such and such playing with such and such, and so it does just get a little bit messy. So ultimately, answering the question, do they work for competitive? I don't really know. I personally think that it works fine if you remove the duos format entirely, but the crazy thing is that like duos is gone right now, and trios is kind of like the meta of FNCS. It's like the format they're using, but there's no real clear way of knowing which one is going to be more dominant, or are we just going to alternate randomly back and forth between, which I have to say, I think if that's the case, that's probably the worst option they could take. I really hope that they don't just randomly between seasons throw duos and then trios back and forth at us. I think that's a really terrible idea, and that just kind of comes from the fact that, again, you have to like randomly split up teams. It causes like some unnecessary chaos, and I guess some like light drama. So I don't really know. I don't really think that they work for competitive that well in that sense, but if it's the main mode in terms of like team play, it works pretty well. Now, one thing that I will give a lot of credit to for trios is storylines. If there are less teams in the game because more players, out of the 100 players or 99 players, whatever you want to look at it, are built into less teams, I think it's a little bit easier to build storylines. You can talk about Macwood, Young Calc, and Zexro, and where they land and what other team they're going to face up against, or where they rotate and face other teams. I think it's easier to build storylines. There's just simply less teams to talk about. So that's one thing that is definitely a plus for trios and in the overall format of things. So I don't know, what do you think in the comment section down below? Let me know. Do you like trios, duos? I think as far as solos go, solos are probably always going to be in Fortnite. It's definitely not my favorite mode, but I've gotten a little bit better at it, and just overall I think it's ironically like my least favorite mode to play, but probably my favorite mode to watch. So that's kind of just where Fortnite solos is for me. But overall, I think trios work. I hope that if they do stick around, we see duos kind of like being removed from competitive format, and if not, then I just don't want random. I really don't want random. I like I said, I think there's pros and cons for trios, but ultimately FNCS week 1 wrap up is here, and they're going to be moving on to the last 4 remaining weeks, and we have trios, and then we'll see what comes next. So that's kind of my conclusion. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I definitely appreciate it. Please do not leave without leaving a like, and I'll see you on the next video.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel the fire inside of me? Do you see the sparks that I'm setting free? Does the beat take you over? You just